Tommy Jagai of Fansided here with NFL expert Marcus Mosher as we are going to go over the top teams in the AFC. We're actually going to rank them, Marcus. We're going to draft our AFC teams. We're going to go back and forth till we get all the way through number 16. I see that you gave yourself the first pick, which was really nice. But this is Stacking the Box, your source for NFL talk, powered by Fansided.com. Should be a fun exercise today.
Yeah, and we're getting closer to the season. It's time to start doing some power rankings and some drafts. And this is the fun way to talk about all these teams in a conference that I think is going to be really tough to figure out this year. We had the Patriots come out of it last year. The Broncos were pretty close. Can the Chiefs get back? Can the Chargers finally get over the hump? Is this the year for Buffalo? I'm excited to talk about all these teams.
Yeah, there should be a lot of flip-flopping and positioning. There were a couple of 13, 14-win teams in the AFC last year, or how far are they going to fall this season? So I'm interested to see. We are in power ranking season. We're in NFL top 100 season. So on that note, Marcus, let's dive into our AFC draft here. And you've got the number one pick. Who is your top team in the AFC?
It's the Denver Broncos. And honestly, they probably should have been in the Super Bowl last year if it wasn't for the Bo Nix injury, and they hung around with Jarrett Stidham last year. But I think when you talk about the best overall roster, I think they have arguably the best offensive line in the NFL, arguably the best defense. They've got one of the best coaching staffs with Sean Payton. They brought back Vance Joseph. Bo Nix, I thought, did take some steps last year. The only thing is you're just waiting for Bo Nix to take another step and become one of these elite quarterbacks. But Tommy, you look at this roster from top to bottom, every single starter is good. They really don't have any big weaknesses. Plus, I think they have a big home field advantage playing in Denver. I think the Broncos are the best team in the AFC, at least going into the season.
I think that's a respectable pick. I do see a regression potentially in the Broncos because, again, it's going to be hard to repeat that type of record that they had last season. And maybe they're just a Bo Nix ankle injury away from going to the Super Bowl and being a lot more competitive than the Patriots were last year. But they do have a really well-rounded roster. They got Jalen Waddle this year, a weapon that's going to help improve that offense. I think that was a good pick. I was not going to go there, actually. My number one team, and maybe this will come as a surprise to you a little bit, is the Houston Texans. That defense is so good. They added McDonald in the middle of the defense, a run stopper. The only thing that they didn't have on defense, they have it now. CJ Stroud kind of hit rock bottom in his career last year. If he can play anything like he did his rookie season or second season in the NFL, we're talking about a bounce back team. There's no team that mirrors the Seattle Seahawks in the NFL, Marcus, right now more than the Houston Texans, who I think maybe even have a better defense than that because they have more star power over there. A little bit concerned about the offensive line still. I think they got some struggles there. If Nico Collins can stay healthy, this team is maybe the best in the AFC and can finish easily with the number one defense.
I thought about the Texans at number one. I think the only concerns is I like Denver's offensive line better. And I think I like Bo Nix more than CJ Stroud. I just trust him more in some of these big games. This is a massive season for CJ Stroud, but you're right. Like, they've got talent galore on this offense. The defense should be even better with some of the additions that they've made. They've kept just about every starter. They brought in Reed Blankenship. This Houston Texans team, if they don't win 11, 12 games this year, I think it's going to be a massive disappointment.
All right, Marcus, you are up for number 3 overall pick in the AFC draft here. Which team are you going with?
This is where it gets hard because you're starting to take teams that maybe don't have the best overall rosters, but have elite quarterbacks. And that's why I'm going with the Buffalo Bills. Now there's a lot of turnover there, right? They've got a new coaching staff. They brought in Jim Leonard to be the defensive coordinator. But I just think with Josh Allen, whenever he's healthy, you're basically locked into 11 plus wins. They've won double-digit games in every season since 2019. I'm still taking the Bills to be a finalist, a Final Four team in the AFC. I think you have to put him at number 3 here.
That was going to be my selection. You can't bet against Josh Allen anymore, and I think that he's going to get over the hump here eventually. He's too good not to. He's the best player in football, has been, I think, for several years now. Good pick there. I'm going to go a similar route, and I'm going to bet on the quarterback, and that's Lamar Jackson, who was not able to stay healthy this past season, but the year before, 41 passing touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I know a lot of people are going to say that losing John Harbaugh is going to be a big deal. They had a lot of, I'm actually more concerned about the roster turnover, losing Tyler Linderbaum and a lot of the role players that they had on their team. I actually think the coaching change is going to be excellent for them, and they could go through some struggles. But Jesse Minter there, I really like him as a coach. Declan Doyle, Declan Doyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
The offensive coordinator. I think there's going to be a spark that's been missing from this team that could help elevate this Ravens team.
It feels a little high for me, but I get it. When Lamar Jackson is healthy, you're talking about a quarterback that is a lock to get you double-digit wins every single season. I think my issue is the defense was bad for most of the year last year. And I know that the Ravens are banking on Jesse Minter fixing that defense, but I think they're really old in spots. I think they're really slow at certain spots. And a lot of it depends on how Matabika comes back from his injury, if he can come back at all, because they're just not the same defense without him. I think this is a fine spot. It's a little high for me, but I get it.
All right. Who do you have with the 5th pick here?
I mean, the Patriots did make it to the Super Bowl last year, and I feel like we are completely dismissing them because of how easy the schedule was. And I get it. Like, that was about as easy as the schedule as you're ever going to get in the NFL. And they play a much tougher schedule this year. They play the AFC West and the NFC North. And Tommy, you could argue like that's 2 of the 3 best divisions in the league that they'll face. But I still think Mike Vrabel's a really good coach. You and I both really like Drake May. The defense is going to be excellent once again. They brought back all of these pieces, and they went out and added A.J. Brown and Romeo Doubs to this offense. So now they at least have 2 viable receivers, plus a bunch of young receivers, including Kyle Williams, Pop Douglas, Kayshon Boutte. You're hoping for more from Trevion Henderson in year 2. They brought in some more offensive line help. They drafted Caleb Lomu in the first round. They signed Elijah Vera Tucker. They brought back Morgan Moses. I think the Patriots, despite some of the concerns, are a top 5 team in the AFC, at least going into the year.
Yeah, and it almost feels disrespectful in a way to not put the defending AFC champions at the top. They've got an ascending quarterback in Drake May. This is absolutely a deserving spot, if not even higher than this for New England. I don't see them repeating the same record. They don't have the same strength of schedule, but I do think they're going to be one of the best teams, and they'll certainly be in the playoff hunt. My next one is going to come between 2. Before we do that, the highs, the lows, the heartbreaks, everything in between. This is Stacking the Box, your source for NFL talk, powered by Fansided.com and the voices at Fansided. All right. I'm torn here, but I'm going to go with the LA Chargers. And Justin Herbert is really good. And this protection was so bad last year. You get Rashawn Slater back. You get Joe Alt back. You add Mike McDaniel to that offense, who I love. I think at his peak, I still think he's a really good offensive play caller. Maybe not the head coach we want him to be. Really good offensive play caller. We know that Jim Harbaugh is a good head coach. The defense did well. They're missing Minter now, and so we'll see what that does to them. But I'm optimistic about this team. I think they're getting more talent. They're still missing like that true bona fide wide receiver 1, but I like what they've got going on for them. I like the coaching addition this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my pick as well. I think just going from Greg Roman to Mike McDaniel might be one of the biggest upgrades we see across the NFL this year. Like I think that's going to do wonders for everybody involved. And I think you look at Mike McDaniel, whether it's, when he was with the 49ers or with the Dolphins, he got these offenses to play at a really high level, despite subpar offensive line play. Now, the Chargers are betting on Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater coming back. They also drafted Jake Slaughter in round 3 this year. They brought in Tyler Biotish. They signed Cole Strange. I don't think it's going to be a top 10 offensive line or anything like that. But compared to what happened last year, where they were putting out, I don't want to say scrubs because that's mean, but you guys get the point. I do think you're going to see the offense be a lot better. I think my only concern is, Tommy, you lose Jesse Minter, and I think he covered up a lot last year. The defense is kind of old in some spots. They really lack, some speed and the linebacker core. I think this is a fine spot for them.
All right. And so you're back up with number 7 pick in the AFC draft.
I'm going with the Cincinnati Bengals, and I understand all of the flaws with the Bengals. Joe Burrow has not been particularly healthy over the last couple of years. The defense was the worst in franchise history last year. However, they're bringing back all 11 starters on offense, including several key backups. I believe their top 16 snap getters are all back this year. They kept their coaching staff intact. And then they went out this offseason, and I think they did a really good job of at least trying to get the defense back up to a respectable level. They traded for Dexter Lawrence. They signed Boy Mafi. They brought in Brian Cook from the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think anybody's expecting this defense to be top 10, but if they could be like 20th, I think they can win that AFC North. And I think right here at number 7, number 8, that's a good range for the Bengals.
Yep, that's exactly where I was going next too, was the Bengals. I'm not betting against a healthy Joe Burrow. If he can stay healthy, that offense is elite. Dexter Lawrence is going to help improve that defense that has been just so bad over the last few years. And so even a little step up on defense goes a long way for a team that seems to always be in the hunt when Joe Burrow can stay healthy. And we'll see if he does this season. Man, I'm really torn between two teams here as well. One's more talented than the other for sure. But you know what? I'm not going to bet against Patrick Mahomes anymore. I'm just not going to do it. And I know that this team is in shambles. They've decreased in talent over the last several years. I think Mahomes is going to come back with a vendetta here. He's going to want to prove why he's a future first ballot Hall of Famer, Super Bowl MVP quarterback. I think that the Chiefs have a bit of a resurgence here, and maybe they don't even get to double-digit wins. Maybe they end up being a 9-win football team if he can stay healthy, and then scratch and claw their way maybe into a wild card spot. But I'm not betting against Mahomes anymore. I really, honestly, the biggest factor here, you ditch Matt Nagy and you bring back Eric Bieniemy, and he's going to let him run Mahomes' offense. And I think that in enough can make up for some of the lack of talent on this team.
I really worry about this team. I would not be surprised if they missed the playoffs again this year. Most of their offensive production last year came with Patrick Mahomes scrambling. They used his legs way too often last year. They lost both of their starting cornerbacks in free agency. They traded Trent McDuffie. And then I look at some key spots on their team, like Tyquan Thornton is expected to be a starting outside receiver. Josh Simmons and Kingsley Suamataia are your left tackle and left guard. We'll see how that works out. Jalen Moore now is your starting right tackle. Your top edge defenders are George Karlaftis and Ashton Galati. I know the coaching staff is really good, but I don't know if they're going to be able to overcome their lack of talent at certain spots.
Yeah, and that's the dilemma, because they've had Mahomes and they've had Andy Reid. It's not been enough so far, but man, they were so good for such a long stretch. How much of that was Tyreek Hill? You go back to it. I think that he is going to bounce back from the season that we've seen the last year and a half. All right, who do you have with the number 9th pick in the AFC draft?
I'm going with the Colts. Now, this is a team that has a lot of issues as well, right? But I don't think we can completely forget about what they did in the first half of last year. Now, I know Daniel Jones is coming off a torn Achilles, and that's always terrifying. Sauce Gardner is coming off kind of a down season for him. He was dealing with a calf injury. Tommy, you just look at this roster, top to bottom, kind of at all the key spots. They've got guys that you really like Tyler Warren coming into year 2. I think he's going to be phenomenal. They were able to bring back Alec Pierce. The offensive line is in pretty good shape. They drafted CJ Allen in round 2 to kind of figure out their linebacker needs. The secondary is very, very good. They signed Arden Key to help kind of boost the pass rush a little bit. I don't think this is an elite offense by any stretch or elite roster, but I think they're one of these teams that's going to be kind of hanging around the rim in the AFC. I like the Colts a little bit more than most people do.
Yeah, and the talent is there. I think that they've got a good thing going for them. What I always come back to with the Colts is we've seen 8 amazing games of Daniel Jones in his 6-year NFL career. Can he keep that going, especially knowing that he's fresh off an Achilles injury, and how much is that going to zap him? I'm a little bit concerned that this team is going to have a regression. They won't. It was the tale of two halves for them. Great first half, terrible second half of the season. I think they probably meet somewhere in the middle of that. That actually was not the direction I was going to go in. I was going to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars, with this pick here.
Fair.
I think that Trevor Lawrence is coming off of his best season as a quarterback and still has room to grow. I mean, this is still a young guy. Liam Cohen, I really like what he's done there so far. I like some of the young talent that they've acquired, the moves they've made at wide receiver. You're getting Travis Hunter back this year. I think that they're a team that is still young and trending in the right direction. And if Lawrence can take even a 10% jump from the quarterback that he has been so far, I think that this is a team that's going to be firmly in the playoff race.
I think my only concern with them is, again, I love Liam Cohen. I thought Trevor Lawrence really took a big step this year. I'm going to read you their offensive line from left tackle to right tackle. Cole Van Lanen, Ezra Cleveland, Robert Hainsey, Patrick McKay, Anton Harrison. Like that legitimately might be the worst offensive line in the NFL, or one of the worst. And it was an issue for them last year. They had guys in and out of the lineup. And I think that's why they went and tried to make some additions to help the blocking up front. They lose Travis Etienne. They're expecting Bashal Tutin to take that role, but Trevor Lawrence is not the same quarterback if he's got some pressure on him. And I think in that division, when you're playing the Houston Texans, and there's a lot of defenses in the conference with like Denver and New England that can really get after the quarterback, I'm a little bit worried about how they can block up front.
Yeah, Marcus, and for what it's worth, I did not like their offseason at all, and I hated their draft. But if those things had been better, I might have drafted them higher than 10th here. Like I think that feels low for a team that could very well find themselves in the playoffs again. But you said it. I mean, there are concerns, especially on the offensive line. Who are you going with number 11 team in the AFC?
Yeah, I think it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think you could have made a case that they should be a little bit higher on this ranking for a couple of different reasons. I think the defense should be really good. They brought back just about every starter on that side of the ball. Plus they added players like Jamel Dean, who I think is really going to help the secondary out. Now you pair him with Joey Porter. You sign Jaquan Brisker. You still have Jalen Ramsey, who can float back and forth between corner and safety. You kept Nick Herbig along with TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. Cam Hayward came back. Like, I think this defense, it's the most expensive defense in the NFL. They should be a top 10 unit. I think the issue is, what is the offense going to look like with Aaron Rodgers going into his age 42 season with Mike McCarthy? I think the offense is still going to be below average, but the defense is going to be good enough to keep them in a lot of games. And we need to remember, like, this is a team that won the AFC North last year. It came at the very end of the season, and they're pretty good at, staying afloat, staying in around that 9 or 10 win range. And when you're talking about the 11th best team in the AFC, I think Pittsburgh probably is going to outperform their expectations here.
Yeah, this is certainly the floor for the Steelers. You're talking about 11 out of 16 teams. They're not going to be any worse than that. Having said that, I don't know if they can be better than the top 8 or 9. Like they're just in that range right now where their stars are kind of on the way out. TJ Watt hasn't been the same player the last 2 years. Cameron Hayward is aging, still a good football player. Their offensive line is ascending. I think that they've got young talent on this team that could help them take a step forward. But Aaron Rodgers turns 43 this season. He was one of the most timid quarterbacks in the NFL last year in his air yards and yards per attempt, and didn't like to get hit. And so I just don't know how much room there is to grow. I think what could vault them higher is if Mike McCarthy's offense proves to be more explosive than what the Steelers had under Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith last year, which was not good. There is potential for them to climb a little higher. They just can't be one of the top teams in the AFC, I don't think, with their quarterback situation. And for what it's worth, I think PFF recently ranked Rodgers as 22nd best quarterback in the NFL. I think that that's just kind of the player that he is at this stage of his career.
I would also mention, I think their special teams units have been pretty good. Chris Boswell wins them at least 2 games every year that they probably shouldn't win. I think it's going to be, I think you're right. It's going to be hard for them to jump inside the top 4 teams in the league. But I think once you get down to like 6, 7, 8, talking about the Chargers, Bengals, Chiefs, they can be
in that tier.
Yeah.
They can be in that tier. If you love football talk, you are in the right place. This is Stacking the Box, powered by Fansided, where fans share their passion every day. All right, let's round out the list here. Number 12 through 16. I am up next. We're going to go with the Las Vegas Raiders and their new quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. Kirk Cousins will be leading the charge, maybe for the whole season, maybe 3/4 of a season. I like a lot of the young talent that this team has. Defensively, yeah, I am really concerned about what they've got going over there. The Max Crosby trade fell through, so he's still over there. But the offense is what I'm more optimistic about. They have some pieces on the offensive line. You've got some really promising skill players in Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty. This is a team that is not going to be a playoff team in my mind. I think that they're going to be one that we can see them maybe perform a lot better in the second half of the season when they hit their stride than they do in the first half. I think be lucky to get a 500 team here. But at this stage of this AFC draft, this is what we're looking at. I'm just betting on the coaching change, adding Clint Kubiak, biggest factor of them all, maybe even for this year specifically, bigger than Mendoza. And this should be one of the ascending teams in the NFL.
I would think so. It just might take them a little bit. I think the defense still has a lot of questions. Now, they spent a ton of money in free agency, like grabbing guys like Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker, but I do think they should at least be competent. We'll see how many wins that translates to.
Yeah, and Tyler Linderbaum, too, the most expensive center in NFL history now. All right, who do you have with the 13th pick?
I'm going with the Cleveland Browns. I know they traded Myles Garrett, but I still think the defense is going to be awesome. I think Jared Verse is a really underrated player. I think you're going to see Mason Graham take a step up in year 2. Carson Schwarzenegger might be the best linebacker in the NFL by the end of the year. So the defense, it's probably not going to be uber elite like it has been with Myles Garrett, but I still think it's going to be solid. And then on offense, I've loved what they've done on offense over the last 2 years. They drafted Quinshon Judkins. They drafted 2 receivers in Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston. Harold Fannin was a breakout star last year. And then they completely revamped the offensive line by drafting Spencer Fano at pick number 9. They traded for Titus Howard. They went out and signed Zion Johnson in free agency. They signed Elton Jenkins. The offensive line is still going to be a work in progress, but that unit is so much better than it was a year ago, and they have more weapons. The quarterback is obviously going to hold them back, but I do think they're trending in the right direction.
Yeah, it feels like different year, same story with the Browns. They've got this really young core, some young talented players on their roster. No clue what's going on at quarterback and no long-term answer there to be found, but I do like their draft a ton. You mentioned the receivers they drafted, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren on defense. Like, this is a team that they do have a youth infusion with talent here, but I think it's only going to get them so far without quarterback play, with a new coaching staff. We'll see what Todd Monken can do with that team. I think this is about the right spot to draft them, though. These last 3 I'm just not fond of at all, but I'm going to go with the Tennessee Titans here. At least they have Cam Ward, former number 1 overall pick, who could take a step forward. He has hopefully a wide receiver 1 now in Carnell Tate. And maybe that, and not a ton outside of that. I mean, they've got problems on the offensive line. They've got their coaching staff changes. We'll see what Robert Saleh can do with this team. And maybe he can spark some magic into this defense that does have some talent. Jeffrey Simmons over there. There's a lot of roster gaps missing from this team still, a lot of talent gaps. And I'm super concerned about them. I think that you're hoping that this can be like a 5 to 7 win team, and maybe they'll take that step forward this year. But it's probably the best of the rest, to be honest.
Yeah. See, I like the Jets, and that's where I'm going with my final pick. And it's partially because the offensive line played really well last year. They've got a lot of young players on that offensive line, including both tackles, Ola Fashanu, Armand Membu, who was awesome. Their center, Josh Myers, was really good last year. They have Joe Tittman. And then they just have an influx of talent with playmakers of Omar Cooper, first-round pick, Kenyon Sadiq, first-round pick. A.D. Mitchell has reportedly been awesome in the offseason for them. Geno Smith is a big question. We'll see what David Bailey can provide on defense, but I think this is a more talented team than you would usually rank as the second worst team in the AFC.
I agree. There's some parallels to the Browns in that regard, and they do have young talent on this football team. The biggest reason why I didn't choose them, I just don't like Aaron Glenn. I think that he is the worst head coach in the NFL right now, and I don't know if they're going to get much better despite the talent that they have on their team. I'm a bigger believer in what Robert Saleh can do over in Tennessee. But you leave me no choice. With the 16th and final overall pick in this AFC draft, I've got to take the Miami Dolphins by default. Malik Willis, we'll see what he can do. The tiny sample we saw in Green Bay was electrifying and awesome, but it was a tiny sample, and it came with a much better organization and much more talented football team. In Miami, you talk about a team it's never been really more obvious that they are completely okay. Jeff Hafley, completely okay. taking that down year this year and saying we're unloading all these older roster pieces. They don't have Tyreek Hill. They don't have Jalen Waddle. This is an old, or this is a young team now. They got rid of its old and talented players, and now we're looking at a team that is probably going to hit rock bottom, maybe the worst team in the league this year.
The only thing I'll say about Miami is they have a chance to have like the best run game in the NFL. They've invested in their offensive line. Caden Proctor was the pick at number 12. Aaron Brewer's the best center in the league. Patrick Paul really took a step up in year 2 for them last year. On top of Devon Achane, you add a mobile quarterback to this offense. I don't think they're going to win a bunch of games, but I could see them being really hard to play just because they might run for 220 yards every week.
Yeah, they could with Achane. Let's see. This is the Stack in the Box show. It premieres every Tuesday evening. Be sure to check it out. You can follow Marcus on X at Marcus_Mosier. You can follow me on X at Tommy Jagai. You can download the Stack in the Box podcast wherever you get your podcast. Also check us out on YouTube. You can follow my written content on stillcurtain.com. Marcus's written content on the Fansided NFL Network. Be sure to check out fansided.com for all your daily sports news and opinions. And thanks again for listening to Stack in the Box.